let's look at the messages that the world around us gives us. Okay. And remember, we operate from a set of beliefs. These beliefs are basically unconscious. I call it our unconscious operating system. These beliefs that make up this unconscious operating system, this belief system, is a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, popular culture, right? But by the time we're little more than toddlers, our basic set of beliefs is pretty much established, and everything is kind of just added into that already existing mix. And so, what are the messages? Does the world around us give us messages of prosperity? Not really. It pretty much gives us messages of lack.
Mm.
The messages we get from the world around us are basically anti-prosperity. We see this everywhere. Okay. Um, and so what happens is, because of this, and that gets into our unconscious, right? Bad enough if it was just conscious,
Sure.
but it's our unconscious. And so what that does is, when we're in a position, when we are older and we're in a position of providing great value to others, and we see the money about to come, but then what happens is, though, that unconscious says, well, wait a second. If I'm making money, doesn't that mean I'm a bad person?
Welcome to The Move In, a senior living marketing podcast from Unlock Health, a full-service marketing partner for the aging services industry. Join us for candid conversations exploring the latest marketing strategies with the senior living community leaders and innovative solution partners who are moving our industry forward. Together, we'll build a community to build better communities. What if the key to becoming a top performer in senior living sales isn't about closing more deals, but about giving more value? Hello, I'm Larry Williams, and welcome to the Move In Senior Living Marketing, powered by Unlock Health. If you're in senior living sales or marketing and you feel stuck in the old playbook, this episode's for you. We're exploring a more meaningful and effective way to connect with prospects, build real trust, and make an impact. I'm joined by Bob Burg, co-author of the international best-selling book, The Go-Giver. Bob's book has reshaped how professionals think about selling, serving, and success. And today, he's here to talk about putting value before commission isn't just good philosophy, it's smart business. Here are a few things we discussed in this conversation. First, give more, sell better. Real success comes when we shift from closing to serving, lead with value, and trust naturally follows. Second, the 5 laws that change everything. Bob unpacks the go-giver mindset from influence to authenticity and how it leads to sustainable success. And third, human is greater than tech. In a digital world, empathy and connection are your strongest competitive advantages. Use tech to support the relationship, not replace it. If you've ever felt the pressure to just hit the numbers, or found yourself wondering if there's a better way to do sales, this episode might change how you think about your career. All right, let's jump into it. We are back on the move in senior living marketing. I always have a special guest joining me today, but I will say I have a very special guest joining me today, Bob Burg, who is I mentioned to him, he is a celebrity in the senior living marketing and sales world because of his book, The Go-Giver. And I think it's necessary reading. You know, I would say for anybody who's in sales, but if you're going into senior living sales and marketing, man, you got to read this. So, Bob, thank you for joining me today for this conversation.
Oh, thank you, Larry. Honored to be with you. I love what you and your colleagues are doing. You're really adding something very special to people's lives.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think that's why your book resonated with me so much. And just a little backstory, it's a book that's been recommended to me many times from different people. And finally I was like, I really need to check out this book. It reads like a novel, but it really goes into the heart of what I think sales really is, which initially we always think about sales as take, but in a much better world, it's really give, and that's what your book touches on. And so, just for those who have not read The Go Giver, can you give us just a brief synopsis of the book? I think you'll do it justice a lot better than I could.
Well, it is a brief, short business parable, co-authored with John David Mann, who's an absolutely brilliant writer and storyteller. I'm much more of a how-to, step one, step two, step three type of guy. John has just a gift for storytelling, and it's about a guy named Joe who's a kind of a young, he's the average Joe, right? And he's young, and he's ambitious, and he's really out there and working hard, but his focus is really a lot on himself. He's what we would call a go taker, right? And so really he learns a lesson. He meets a mentor by the name of Pindar and several other people who serve as mentors, and he learns a very valuable lesson, and that is shifting your focus. And I think this is really where it all really where it all begins: shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. And not for any kind of woo woo, magical, mystical type of reasons. Oh, just give and do good things and good things. No, that's not it. It's much more rational. It's much more logical than that. And it really ties into human nature. And that is, when you're that person who can take your focus off of yourself and genuinely, authentically place it on others, discovering their needs, their wants, their desires. When you make it not about you, but about understanding and helping them overcome their problems and challenges, when you can make it not about yourself, but moving them closer to happiness, well, people feel good about you. Really, I mean, Larry, they feel great about you, right?
Yeah.
They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you, if that's what they need. And they really, though, they want to tell the world about you. They want to be what we call your personal walking ambassador. And John and I, take the reader through 5 what we call laws of stratospheric success that are in alignment with that basic premise.
Man, that's incredible. I love that. And just, I love the phrase move them closer to happiness.
Mm.
And when it's all said and done, I want to say, like, salespeople, they tend to think they need to be the hero in the journey. And really they're the guide.
Yeah, sure.
Something that I learned and it really helped me in my career is to really think about what's your intention? What's that true intention? If your intention is to sell, that's going to come across. If your intention is to truly help and to give, that's going to come across as well. So, and I think that's you state this very well in the Go Giver. Can you talk about those 5 laws? I think that's really good to kind of cover that just at that broad level, because that's the big impact of the book is going through those.
Sure. Well, the 5 laws themselves are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. And the first one, the law of value, says your true worth, in the business sense, of course, your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, when you first hear this, it's a little counterintuitive sounding, right? Give more in value than I take in payment. That sounds all nicey nice and everything, but it also kind of sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy. Give more in value than I take in payment. So we simply have to understand the difference between price and value. Price is a dollar figure. It's a
Yeah.
dollar amount. It's finite. It is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth or value to another person that they will willingly exchange their money for it and be glad they did, while you also make a very healthy profit. Can I give you an example of this outside of the senior living
I would
space?
love that.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then we'll bring it back to senior
Sure.
living. So let's say you hire an accountant to do your taxes, and this accountant, we're just going to name a round figure. She charges you $1,000. That's her fee, or literally her price, right? $1,000 to do your taxes. But what value does she give you in exchange that makes it so worthwhile? Well, through her years of experience, her hard work, her focus on you and learning about your business and what you're looking to accomplish. She's able to save you $5,000 in taxes. She saves you countless hours of time, and she provides you and your family with the security and the peace of mind of knowing it was done correctly.
Yeah.
Right. So she gave you well over $5,000 in value in exchange for $1,000 fee or price. So she gave you more in value than she took in payment. So you feel great about it. Obviously, you received a lot more than what you paid for. But she also made a very healthy profit
Sure.
because it was worth it to her to exchange her time, her energy, her knowledge, her wisdom, her caring, her what have you, for this $1,000. So both of you came out ahead. Now, in any free market based exchange, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. So, in any free market based exchange, there should always be two profits: the buyer profits and the seller profits, because each of them come away better off afterwards than they were beforehand. But here's the key: in this situation with your accountant, it happened not because she was focused on her fee. She was focused on the immense value she was providing you. Okay. The fee was simply the result. This is why John David Mann and I say, and John coined this term, that money is simply an echo of value.
I
Right.
love that.
It's the thunder, if you will, to value's lightning, meaning the value must be the focus. The value you provide another person must be the focus. The
Yeah.
money you receive is just a natural result of the value you've provided. Now, if we look at the senior living, well, you're charging a certain fee for this senior to live there, and whether it's the senior themselves or their kids who set things up, or when you get more into the hybrid home care element, as well as whatever the specific situation is. Okay, you're receiving a fee for this, but what's the value you're providing?
Yeah.
Okay, and now we could do a long list, right? It's not only the facility, let's say. It's not only the actual care, the diagnosis and the caring, and that. No,
Mhm.
no, it's the feeling of genuine peace of mind and comfort and feeling loved and cared about and safety, and right, it's the child knowing their precious mom or dad is being taken care of by good people who truly care. It's the person who can get up in the morning and know that they have a community, that they have people who care, that they have
Yeah.
whatever it happens to be, and we
Yeah.
all value different things differently, right? But the value they're receiving is much more than what they're paying. So
Yeah.
they profit, and of course, the facility and business profits as well.
I love that. And it's funny that you say peace of mind because as you were speaking, I literally wrote peace of mind and how important that is in this process. And regardless of what sales, field you're in, that's really what you're providing someone. And,
Mhm.
far too often we talk about AI and more data and everything's becoming, everything with tech these days. But when it's all said and done, there's this human element. And I think the future is as just as human as it is, technology, just because people want to interact with humans. Now, you don't have to lead the way with that human connection, but at some point, again, when it comes to senior living marketing, someone will interact with your brand through a website, through a paid ad of some sort, but they want someone who cares. And that's when that human element comes into play. That being said, what do you see the future when it comes to sales, and how can we as salespeople become more like provide more of that human experience and continue to add value? Because when I think about it, it's like, okay, social media, how do you add value? How do you add content? How do you drive someone to have more knowledge? And I feel like that's a great way to provide value. Can you, provide your thoughts on that front and where sales is going and how to continue to add that value?
Well, whenever we talk about AI or any type of technology, social media, the various platforms and so forth, anything that's not human should be utilized only in order to deepen the human connection.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of these are tools and they're wonderful tools. And we're now looking at more and more ways to that AI can actually help with the human connection. Why? Look at the research you can do in advance.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm
For
saying?
sure.
You know, one of the things I said, and I said this in my first book, Endless Referrals, 30 years ago, I think.
Got it
And,
on my
and
shelf.
it, oh, thank you. And it makes its way into law number 3, the law of influence in the Go Giver, is what we call the golden rule of business. And that is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Notice it doesn't say with those computers
Yeah.
they know, like, and trust. It's always the person behind or in front of, I should say,
Sure.
the computer. And you can absolutely create wonderful, wonderful relationships. Hey, back when I was starting in sales 40 years ago, we had this tool of technology that was used all the time by many salespeople. It was called the telephone. Right? And you made calls, you
Yeah.
contacted people, you created relationships, you followed up, you closed sales on the phone if it was in a different part of so technology is technology. It gets better and better, right?
Sure.
But it's always the human. Now,
Yeah.
years ago, a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey Colvin, he was the editor-in-chief, former editor-at-large, excuse me, of Fortune magazine. He wrote a couple great books. One of them was called Humans Are Underrated. And the premise of that book was that even just 20 years ago, and he wrote it probably 7 or 8 years ago, I guess, even 20 years ago, 25 years ago, the question was, what can humans do that computers and technology can't do? And there were a few things still.
Hmm.
Now he says, and again, this is 7 years ago, it's got even more so, but now he says, it's not a matter of that because technology can pretty much do everything a human
Yeah.
can do. The question now becomes, what is it that humans can do that other humans will not accept
Love
from
that.
computers or from,
Yeah.
and he gave one of the examples he used, and it's a morbid one, but I think it makes an excellent point, and that is, say a loved one is having a surgery done, and God forbid, they die during surgery. The family does not want to read that on a printout.
Mm.
Okay. No, they want a doctor or nurse who is empathetic and caring and kind and actually cares about the and what Colvin said, and again, I think this was so fantastic, was that as technology becomes even more prevalent, the people who are going to have the jobs that make the highest sustainable income, those who are in most demand, are the people who master those skills. I call them people skills. Some call them soft skills. Some I don't see anything soft about them. Okay, I call them people skills, and those people, and that's empathy, kindness, teamwork,
Mm.
leadership, collaboration. Right? These are the people who are going to be sought out.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and it's one of those things you have to kind of learn over time also.
Sure.
And when I think about that, I think about sales managers who are trying to teach sometimes a younger sales team, and simply that younger sales team, they're go go go. I always say that a younger sales team, they're like hammers, and all they see are nails. They're just looking to make sales.
Sure.
What's your advice to sales managers trying to teach this mindset of, like give first, give value, and then you can be a good human and just set things up for success?
Well, it always comes to understanding why that's important and why that works. Okay, so focusing on the customer is not just some nicey nice thing that, oh, wouldn't it be great if people did that? It's the way to do business. Let me go back to something years and years ago when I was still speaking on the road. Now I don't travel to speak anymore. I still do keynotes, but they're right here and in front of the computer. But I used to, for 35 years, I was on the road all over the place speaking at sales events. Okay. So I'd have a room full of salespeople in front of me. And one of the first things I would say is nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet.
I love that.
And we'd all laugh because,
Yeah.
we all know that, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to buy from you because you have a sales goal or because you need the money or even
Mhm.
because you're a really nice human being. They're not going to buy, and I'm sure you are, but that's not why they're buying from you.
Correct.
They're going to buy from you because they believe that they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. That's it.
Yeah.
That is human nature. That is reality. Now, this is great when you think about it because it means that person who is really heart-centered and other-focused, they're 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game.
Sure.
Okay. So, the challenge with people in sales, in any kind of what I call the healing arts, and I consider senior living, in that, because it's still the caring for other, is that they have this, they tend to have this attitude of, there are 2 types of people in the world: people who do good for others or do good for themselves. All right.
Yeah.
And Nicole Martin had that issue, and the CEO in the story, right?
Mhm.
That she had to learn. And that's why we put that in there, because it's what we call the false dilemma. The treacherous dichotomy is another name, right? The false dilemma, the unnecessary use of the word or.
Yeah.
We're either doing it for them or for ourselves. Well, sales, the only way, and again, this is in a marketplace where no one's forced to do business with you, okay? The only way you can earn a lot of money, okay, is by providing great value to a lot of people. But that means the focus must be on the other person,
Yeah,
okay?
for sure.
What do they need? What do they want? What do they desire? What problems do, just like we talked about earlier, right? And so that sales manager needs to know, and hopefully they do, but so you hear sometimes they don't, right? And it's all about just get in there and make this.
Yeah.
It's got to be about the other person. Now, don't get me wrong. You can have a go taker attitude, and if you work hard enough for long enough, you're going to make some sales. Even then, of course, you're still doing it only by providing value to others.
Mhm.
It's just that you don't care about that. Yeah, that's not your focus. Okay. But it's really tough to make a great living that way sustainably. It's really difficult
Yeah.
because, again, they're not buying for your reasons. They're buying for theirs. And so no, it's just doing it as a go-giver, focusing on providing value to others is actually the fastest and most sustainable way to make a really good living.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think about that go taker mentality. Like you said, people can do that. I feel like it's a harder road,
Harder, much
and
harder.
I think about that reputation. And for me, I always wanted my reputation to be
Mhm.
one of people looking forward to seeing me at
Exactly.
events and conferences, and not, oh, here's that sales guy. And so you want your reputation to precede you. And if you do a great job of really, again, checking that intention at the door,
Mhm.
that reputation is going to grow and flourish, where they know that, like you mentioned earlier, like, they're going to take care of you. There's going to be that peace of mind when they
Sure.
interact with you. They're not thinking about you as a salesperson. They know that you're going to provide value of advice or direction. And so then I think about
Yeah.
this mindset, which is how important detachment is,
Mm.
in not connecting yourself with that sell, or the willingness to walk away. In the
Oh.
book you see that with Joe, his willingness to actually connect, his potential client with
Mhm.
someone else, and you can sense this how uncomfortable he is, and he's like, have I made the wrong mistake? I mean, have I made a mistake here? And then you see how it kind of works its way through
Yeah.
the end. And that's not just a business book, that's a novel. This is real life. I've seen this firsthand, how
Oh,
just saying, like,
absolutely.
what is the best thing for
For
this
the
client,
Yep. What's
and
best
how
for the
do I
client.
connect them with the right strategies? And it
Mhm.
it does work itself out.
Yeah, and there's nothing magic about it. It's that you're creating that know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
John and I call that the benevolent context for your success.
Yeah.
And we never want people to think that being a go-giver is self-sacrificial. It absolutely is not. It's that it works for all parties concerned.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of my favorite quotes is, the best pillow is a clear conscience. As a salesperson, if you're able to wrap up the day and feel like you gave value, and you're able to I don't know, just have a better outlook on life
Yep.
as a whole. And it brings so much more value to your heart and your soul
Mhm.
as well.
It does.
I want to go back to the five laws, and just
Yeah, we
recapping
covered the first one. We can go through all of them if you want.
well,
I can do a quick
I
recap.
got a specific question I'm gonna
Oh, go
run
ahead.
past you.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna go through them real quick. The law of
Okay.
value, the
Yep, we
law of
did that one. Yep.
compensation, the law of influence, the law of authenticity,
Mhm.
and the law of receptivity.
Receptivity,
So
yep.
my question for you, when it comes to salespeople, which is the one that people struggle with the most?
Oh, easy. Receptivity.
That's what I was going to say. That one kind of surprised me at the end of the book, just because I do think that we get into this mindset of give, give, and then it kind of becomes somewhat, I don't know, awkward, to have that mindset of being willing to receive.
Let's look at the messages that the world around us gives us. Okay. And remember, we operate from a set of beliefs. These beliefs are basically unconscious. I call it our unconscious operating system. These beliefs that make up this unconscious operating system, this belief system, is a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, popular culture, right? But by the time we're little more than toddlers, our basic set of beliefs is pretty much established, and everything is kind of just added into that already existing mix. And so, what are the messages? Does the world around us give us messages of prosperity? Not really. It pretty much gives us messages of lack.
Mm,
The messages we get from the world around us are basically anti-prosperity. We see this everywhere. Okay. Um, and so what happens is, because of this, and that gets into our unconscious, right? Bad enough if it was just conscious,
sure.
but it's our unconscious. And so what that does is, when we're in a position, when we are older and we're in a position of providing great value to others, and we see the money about to come, but then what happens is, though, that unconscious says, well, wait a second. If I'm making money, doesn't that mean I'm a bad person? Doesn't mean I've hurt others or taken advantage of others. Now, again, that's not conscious, but this
Sure.
is our unconscious. We see it everywhere. Look at a friend of mine, Randy Gage, who's a great teacher of prosperity, and he does this beautiful vignette where he talks about, if you watch any movie, right, any big selling movie, there are typically two types of people portrayed. There are the good people, which are generally portrayed as being poor but happy, and they're honest,
Hmm.
and they're whatever. And these people are always taken advantage of by who? The evil rich person, who
Yeah.
is horrible and terrible and greedy and has no soul. And he gives this great example. And I'll just do this one example because I think it's so powerful. Okay. And this is how it gets into the unconscious. He go back to the first Spider-Man movie. Okay. And Uncle Ben and Peter are sitting on the couch, and they're talking about, being poor, and Uncle Ben says, well, Peter, we may be poor, but at least we're honest. Now, what kind of message does that give to some young teenage boy or girl who's watching that? Okay, now they're not consciously taking that in, but unconsciously, what it's saying is, if you are if you're honest, if you've got good values, if you've been brought up right, you have no chance on being prosperous financially. On the other hand, if you make a lot of money, you must be doing something very, very evil. Now he said, but that's just a movie. No, first of all, it's just about every movie,
Yeah.
but it's also pretty much every news story, everything on the internet, it's on TV, it's on. So again, this is just, and again, it's very uh uh subliminal in a way. And it's not that
It
it's,
is.
yeah, and it's not that it's some conspiratorial thing to keep people in lack thinking. No, it's just what sells.
Yeah, for sure.
Human nature. So we've got to really be, and that's why I'm a big believer in making a proactive study of prosperity. Now, John and I in the book, we do a chapter on it, and that's fine, and that gets me, but it's not enough. To me, you should look up people like Randy Gage, like Sharon Lecter, Ellen Rogan, Ken Honda, Lisa Leisa Peterson, uh, uh, David Nagel. the late Bob Proctor. I mean, these people put out blogs and videos, and they teach, and the whole bit, and 99.9% of what they're teaching is simply how to get past the mental and
Yeah.
emotional blocks.
And that's a legit thing. And mentally, you have to be engaged and think about that. And that needs to be a foundational level. One thing that's really helped me in my sales career is instead of watching the news in the morning, I've shifted it to watching motivational videos on YouTube. And it's funny,
Yeah.
it's the small things that we set our mindset in to help us have success. And like you said, sometimes we're self-sabotaging. And
Mhm.
it's easy to do in sales because we're constantly being measured, through KPIs, everything. And so that kind of brings me to another question, which is the power of mentorship. And I love that with Pindar in the book, he's providing guidance to Joe. How important how important is it to have a strong mentor in your professional life, especially for salespeople? Because
Oh,
I think it's so easy for salespeople to lose their way because again, they're constantly being judged.
mhm.
You won, you lost. You're doing well, you're not. You had a good month, okay. Now you had a bad month. It's all this inner game stuff. I'm sure a mentor can help provide that guidance. I wanted to, see if you had any advice for those like who are either looking for that mentor and also, those who could be a better mentor for others. And if you don't mind me just throwing that at you.
No, I mean, by all means, mentorship is so powerful. And it doesn't have to be that one mentor for, a lifetime. It can be, and that's fine too.
Sure,
But really, it's just seeking out wisdom from those who are, either where you want to be, people who you admire, who you respect, who are successful, and so forth. And and it's just asking them for guidance. And what I always say to people, what not to do when seeking out a mentor is to just like say to somebody, hey, now, and again, assuming you don't have a relationship with this person, is to just say,
sure.
hey, I need a mentor. Would you be my mentor? Right? Because what that does is it kind of probably more scares them than anything else that you're someone who's going to just take their time, or that you feel entitled to just, because there's probably, if you want this person to be your mentor, probably lots of other people do as well. But you can go up to anybody, or you approach anyone. It can be online, it can be phone, it can be in person, whatever, and just say something, like, I know you're very busy, and if this is something you'd rather not do, I'll absolutely understand, or for any reason you'd rather not. But I'm wondering if I could ask you one or two very specific questions,
I love that.
and see what you're doing in that case. First, you're respecting the process. You're giving that person an out. You're saying, I know you're busy. If if you're too busy, or for any reason you would not want to, I'll absolutely understand. But then what you're doing is this. Instead of just saying, can I pick your brain, which says to them that's very general, and that's a time waster, and how much time is this person going to take up? You're saying, may I ask you one or two very specific questions?
I love that.
Yeah, and it says to this person, okay, this person knows what they want to ask. They're respecting my time. They're not. Then you're in the conversation, and by the way, research everything you can about that person first. This is where AI is very helpful, or their website, or however you, or whatever, so that you
Sure.
don't ask this person questions that you could have discovered just by doing your research. And you ask that one or two very specific questions, and then what I'm going to suggest is that day, and then you thank them for it. You don't keep them long. You said, you ask, would it be okay if every so often I followed up just to let you know how I'm doing, what have you. And they're always going to say, oh yeah, of course, please do, because you've established yourself now as
Yeah.
some, right. And then write a handwritten personalized note of thanks to that person immediately afterwards. Okay. Not an email or a text, a handwritten personalized note that just says, dear Mr. So and so, or dear Ms. So and so, or Tom or Mary, however the relation's been established. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to guide me. Your wisdom is priceless, and I look forward to applying it right away. We'll keep you updated on my progress. Best regards. Now you hand stamp it. Sign. You not a meter stamp, but a regular stamp, and you hand address the envelope. You send it that day. That's very impressive. Again, you followed up in a way that's very
Yeah.
professional. And you've now, when if there's ever something you can do for that person, such as You see something on their website that could be that, improved, or that, whenever you can make a suggestion, if again, only if that's appropriate, you've got to be the judge,
Sure.
or if you can introduce them to someone might be helpful, what have you. But here's the thing, several weeks later, follow up with it, and it can be an email if you want at that point, or it could be a phone call, just to say, just an update, blah, blah, blah. Here's what's happening. Again, thank you so much. I've been able to apply so and so. And then you can always call a couple weeks later, may ask you another quick question, whatever. Now, if a mentor protege ongoing relationship is supposed to happen, it will,
Yeah.
right? If not, it won't. It may be that was your one or two conversations with this person, or they may introduce you to someone else, or someone else. You might keep your eyes and ears open for people who might, right? And then again, when it's your turn to mentor others, you'll do that too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think about all the mentors I've had along my journey.
Likewise.
And then you see people who you want to help because you just want to continue to pass it along, especially early on in your career. You need those mentors. You need that
Sure.
person to say, you're doing this. I would just caution you. Be just take these steps. You're going to be fine. And I think that's one thing trying to be, more aware of is to have that human connection. Giving is not just a sales and client relationship. It's amongst people as well. And so
Sure.
continue to pass this along. So Bob, this has been incredible. I could speak with you just for another 30 minutes, but one thing I wanted to, just kind of wrap this up on, it's not just about this one book. You have The Go-Giver, but you have other books in the series. And my good friend Christy Vander Westhuizen even said, hey, you need to check out The Go-Giver Sells More. Can you tell me more about some of the other resources that you have, and how can people learn more, and what does this look like moving forward with some of these additional books and emails and everything, like you and all the other resources that you have?
Yeah, well, Go Giver Sell More is just more the application base of the Go Giver. So many
Gotcha.
people asked, for specific examples that you can't do in a parable, so we could take it deeper with Go Giver
Sure.
Sell More. So we included people who have prospered by utilizing the wisdom, and a lot of people who were doing it long before they ever read the Go Giver, right? Because
Yeah.
remember, there's nothing new. What John and I talk about, these principles have been used by successful people forever, long before the book ever came out. That's why they're principles and not just, and then we also have the Go Giver Leader, the Go Giver Influencer, which is really about people skills. The Go Giver, that's my favorite book in the series, the Go Giver Influencer, because
Okay.
it's all about people skills.
Oh,
And
thanks for
really,
sharing that.
and John and his wife Anna, they actually, I was not involved with this one. They wrote a book called The Go Giver Marriage.
Oh, interesting. I
Yeah, which
love
is
that.
beautiful. Oh, they did a wonderful job with it.
Yeah.
And so so we have a whole series. If people go to burg.com, they can pretty much find everything
Awesome.
there. And I do have a daily impact email that I
Mhm.
send out.
And I've seen that. Love it. It's
Oh,
great.
thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that about the Go Giver marriage series. I would say I'm proudly celebrating 21 years of marriage today.
Oof.
Today's the anniversary, and
Oh,
it's really, thank
congratulations.
you so much. And it's one of those, again, this is not just a sales book. This is, you take these applications to life and just give more, just give, and the world just kind of takes care of itself. But what I appreciate about your book is that you don't just have these lofty, oh, it's going to be fine. You really put in business terms. So Bob,
Thank
thank you so much for taking
Oh,
the time to chat. Like I said, you are a celebrity in the senior living sales and marketing world. And I feel like my senior living street cred just went up by having the chance to speak with you today. So thank you so much. We'll make sure that we put your website in the show notes, but everyone check those show notes to go to Bob's website. And I'll also include links to the books so they can find that really quickly as well.
thank you so much. Great to be with you.
Well, thank you, Bob. All right. A huge thank you to Bob Burg for joining us and sharing such powerful insights from the Go Giver. Again, I recommend this book to everyone in sales and marketing. Before we go, here are a few notes I took during this conversation. First, focus on value, not quotas. The more you show up to serve, the more success will follow. Second, live the 5 laws. Make value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity part of how you show up every day. And third, let tech support, not replace your relationships. Use it to listen better, personalize deeper, and stay more connected, because real success in senior living still comes down to human connection. Bob, you continue to be an inspiration. Please keep spreading this message. And until next time, let's go make some meaningful connections.